Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, The Buck, Kirk Buchner, owner, operator of NotInHallOfFame.com, and today, it's a really big week, actually, if you look back at what's just happened. We've had the Super Bowl, we've had the Baseball Hall of Fame make their announcements, we've had the Pro Football Hall of Fame make their announcements, and if you're going to talk about those, you got to bring back Evan Nolan. Evan, the Super Patriots fan, he's got a few things to say about last night's game. He's also got a few things to say about the Baseball Hall and who got in. I've got a few chirps myself. And, of course, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So let's get right to it. Let's bring back Evan Nolan, the second-hand burrito, and we'll actually sort of discuss as to why that's exactly who he is. You can find him on Twitter, actually using that very tag. And here is Evan Nolan. All right, recording. Evan, it's so good to have you back. We said that we were going to chat again after the Baseball Hall of Fame made their announcement, but actually I'm sort of glad this got delayed a bit because we can touch a bit on the Pro Football Hall of Fame announcement. First thing I got to ask, are you happy with the Patriots win last night?
Yeah, when we decided to postpone this, I was like, man, we're going to see how good this podcast is going to be based on what happens. So, yes, it's funny, though. At this point, I'm more relieved than jubilant. I felt like after the Atlanta comeback and the crazy play at the end zone with Seattle, I'm just more relieved that the Patriots didn't lose back to back to Nick Foles and Jared Goff in the Super Bowl. But it was let's just call it a defensive struggle. And it's amazing what that they were able to do. In many ways, I kind of feel that this is as I say in Tombstone, the last ride of Wyatt Earp and his Immortals. I have a hard time believing, although they do have a lot of they have 7 picks in the first 3 rounds this year. So they do have a lot of ability to restock. I just kind of feel like how much longer can Brady keep doing this, and how much longer they keep doing it with only 2 guys who can catch, or 3 guys who can catch footballs. So yes, now I'm very excited. I'm excited it happened. And this is going to be a much happier podcast than it would have been without it.
So actually I want to touch on a quick Football Hall of Fame question for you first. Today I stumbled across 7 different articles that was actually already openly debating whether Julian Edelman's a Hall of Famer, and I had to look at that. What's your first hot take on Edelman in the Hall of Fame?
I was hoping we get to this first.
Okay.
Julian Edelman is one of my absolute favorite Patriots of all time. I know he was suspended for PEDs at the beginning of the season, but that has never been a barrier for getting in the Hall of Fame before.
Not in football. Anyway.
He's not the only one, certainly not in football. It's not treated the same way. Ray Lewis was suspended. Peyton Manning should have been suspended, although he was smart enough to have the HGH addressed to his wife as opposed to him, so there's no investigation. That's my Patriots conspiracy hat getting on again. There's all sorts of stuff like that. However, his argument comes down to this, that he is second all-time in the receiving category to Jerry Rice. 2 receiving categories now, because he's second in postseason receptions and he's second in postseason yards. Here is the only way he gets in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. He's 32 now. He's really only been a full-time player since 2013. So what is that? 5 seasons. Well, he missed all of last year because he blew out his leg. So 5 full seasons. So he's 32 already. He's only had 5 full seasons. If he plays 4 more years and has 4 more long runs in the playoffs and passes Jerry Rice in catches and receiving yards, that is the only possible argument he has. Other than that, the number of people ahead of him, just in wide receivers who are getting in the Hall of Fame, is ridiculous. Isaac Bruce is having trouble getting in. We have Steve Smith is going to be coming up. Hines Ward's been a semifinalist a bunch of years and can't get on the ballot. Torrey Holt, who was on the All-Decade team for the 2000s, which is interesting to me that it was Torrey Holt on the All-Decade team and not Isaac Bruce. But Torrey Holt can't get on the ballot, and he's been a semifinalist 5 times and hasn't been able to get on. And that's just a few people. I'm not even getting into Larry Fitzgerald, who's going to be retired probably before he is, and Megatron. And let's think of all the wide receivers. There is a Steve Tasker chance he gets into the Football Hall of Fame. Like,
I love it.
I hate Hines Ward. Like, Hines Ward may be my least favorite athlete of all time. There is almost nobody who I find more despicable in the history of professional sports than Hines Ward. Hines Ward should be voted in twice before Julian Edelman, and I love Julian Edelman. Mm-hmm. Julian Edelman is a first ballot Patriot Hall of Famer. Very much like Teddy Bruschi. He's going to go down as one of the most popular Patriots of all time.
As
but he is not a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He's got 30 career touchdowns. He has fewer career touchdowns than Rashae Caldwell.
We have to let people Google what that name is.
Believe me, if you follow the Patriots in 2010, he was our best receiver somehow. But yeah, I mean, there's no real argument. He's been in the league a bunch of years, but he wasn't doing anything until 2013, and he missed a whole year last year, blowing out his leg in a stupid preseason game. So
we could go on and on just why there shouldn't be 4 preseason games, but that's another show.
Right. I absolutely love the guy. I mean, is Wes Welker a Hall of Famer in your opinion?
No.
Not mine either. Welker had a shot at it, but Welker had a much more productive start of his career than Edelman did. So Welker had a shot at it, but then he was done. And I just feel like Edelman got a start way too late. And there's nothing wrong with being second place to Jerry Rice in some sort of category, though.
Not at all.
If you could say that, then great. Gronkowski's the first ballot Hall of Famer. But Edelman is a Patriots Hall of Famer.
I agree. All right, so we're going to go back to football. Let's hit baseball right away. I think hell froze over. And it's not because Mariano Rivera got in. We all knew he was going to get in. I never thought I would ever see the day where it'd be 100%. And I'm so happy I did. It shows a changing of the guard. I think it's great that you don't have a lot of asshole voters who are just holding on to antiquated ideas. But it's weird. I have this. I feel almost bad because as much as I think Rivera should be in, he should be in unanimously. I feel bad almost for like 30 other people who should have been first. Is that wrong?
Yeah, I mean, no, you shouldn't. Honestly, the whole old-fashioned Babe Ruth didn't get in, so nobody should get in thing should have ended with Griffey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there any legitimate reason that Junior Griffey was not a unanimous Hall of Famer?
Zero.
He got 99.3% because 3 people left him off. I think 2 people turned in blank ballots because of the suspicions following steroids.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad it's over. I think we're going to have another unanimous selection next year. As a matter of fact, we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yep. Definitely.
Another Yankee at that matter. But yeah, I'm glad it's over. I will say though, there are still people who are jerks with their own agenda. That says that one agenda is gone. There's the one writer from Boston who we all call the curly-haired boyfriend, Dan Shaughnessy, who is.
I knew he was going to come up today. I knew it.
Well, Shaughnessy won the Spinks Award, so he is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And recently, I can't remember it was last year or the year before, that he gone into the Baseball Hall of Fame. He has been a hack of himself for at least the last 15 years. And he turned in a ballot that had one name on it, which was Mariano Rivera, and nobody else. And I don't want to go into his reasoning other than to say it's asinine. And it was more about making a statement to make himself look cutting edge and daring than anything that actually makes any sense. But at least he was smart enough to give Rivera a vote. But yeah, he also has a whole stance on Kurt Schilling that Schilling should go stand in the corner for a year, and then maybe he'd get back to him. It was so patronizing and self-serving. But at least he voted for Rivera.
Yeah, well, he's taking shit personally, and you shouldn't do that if you're a journalist. Period. Regardless of what you're covering.
Exactly right. Well, the Patriots haven't beaten anybody in his book in about 15 years because everyone they play is a tomato can, he calls it, after the end.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Don't get me started on.
Oh no! I wasn't. So Rivera's in unanimously, which is fantastic. Should draw a lot of Yankees fans. Edgar Martinez shoots up right to 85.4. About time. I think honestly, when you had an award named after you and you're not in the Hall of Fame, you've got to be sitting at home just thinking like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, that'll come up in the pro football thing in a sec when we get there too. I think about a rule that came up as to why somebody's in now. We'll get back to that later.
Yeah, and I'm really happy for Edgar. And it was one of those weird things where it didn't feel like Tim Raines when he got in on his 10th. Like, will he or won't he? There was just such a momentum push that there was really no doubt in my mind he was getting in. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, I didn't think there was any real chance of him of not getting in. And his meteoric rise is going to be interesting for somebody who also made a big jump this year but didn't get in. Mm-hmm. I think for next season. We'll get to that too.
Yeah. Halliday joins at the exact same percentage, 85.4. No shock there. Just very sad he won't be there to enjoy it.
Well, do you realize he is the first person since Christy Mathewson in the original class who's been elected to the Hall of Fame through the normal process? So Lou Gehrig and Roberto Clemente don't count because they were kind of elected the very next year.
Right.
Who wasn't alive?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Christy Mathewson died in 1925, and the Hall of Fame didn't open until 36. So he'd been dead 11 years when he was elected. But yeah, Halliday, think of all the people elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame with all the crazy things that have happened through the years. And the only one who's been elected through the normal process who isn't alive other than Christy Mathewson's Halliday.
Damn, no, I had no idea.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
What ocean did he crash into?
I'm not sure. Christy Mathewson probably just died of guile, something weird like that back in those days.
Polio or something. I figured it's not too soon that I can make a Christy Mathewson joke. I hope. I don't know.
It has almost been 100 years.
Yeah, so. I think we're okay. And this is the one I'm the most happy about. Mike Messina getting in, 76.7. This is fantastic. He deserves it. What's your take though on Messina and Halliday? Well, not that Halliday had much to sort of say about that. Going in without a hat.
I think that's interesting. Yeah. I personally feel like Halliday should go in as a Blue Jay and Messina should go in as an Oriole. Mm-hmm. That's my personal feeling on it. But they're both. Halliday had the 2 no-hitters and World Series victory in Philly. Mm-hmm. Even though he wasn't there as long as he was in Toronto. I think it's interesting. Who made those decisions? That's one thing I wasn't sure of.
Messina made his decision for that. Halliday's widow did for him, saying that that's how he would have wanted it. So it's possible that might have come up, in conversation. I'm sure it did. And he did have a wonderful time in Toronto, but he did what a lot of great players on struggling teams do. You just want to chase that ring. And he was successful in that chase. If he didn't win the World Series in Philly, that might be different, but he did.
Yeah. I think it's a tough case. It's not the Wade Boggs run going to the Devil Ray. It's it's interesting either way because they both had tons of success in multiple places. Even though Messina somehow just missed winning a championship on either side with the Yankees.
Right.
And he was also the only pitcher to go out with a 20-win season for a long time too, because it was his only 20-win season was his last one.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think
by the way, I went and looked it up. Christy Mathewson died of tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis.
So something very 1925.
Yes. So, very much sounds.
At the ripe old age of 45.
Oh, well, I'm already past that. So if I come off like a crusty old man, I guess I am. I always thought that when Boggs made that decision, what they should have done is they should have said, okay, you know what? I want to go in as a Devil Ray. No, you're going to go in without a hat and without your hair plugs.
Ooh.
Because I think you kind of deserve that one a little bit. So we have 4 in, then plus the 2 on that. That really clears up the ballot for next year. And
it does.
Because there's only one sure thing for next year, and that's a one and done. And we'll just get to him now. It's Derek Jeter. For those not aware.
I think Derek Jeter's going to be unanimous as well.
He should be. There's no reason for him not to be. But there's really no one else coming up who's really a fringe guy. But we'll get to that list later. Curt Schilling made a nice little jump up to 60.9%. I think eventually he's going to get in, providing he just keeps his mouth somewhat shut. And if he's bitter, I don't blame him. He's not exactly sort of the type of guy who gives you the warm and fuzzies, but if he's got a chip on his shoulder towards this, I don't blame him. But in this case, you're just best to sometimes just keep quiet. These are the people who just have these little bits of power and they like to use it.
Right. And Schilling, I don't think it's in next year, just by the way. I think he makes another jump, particularly with the lack of other quality candidates coming on. But I don't think that he's going to make it all the way to 75. I think he'll end up somewhere in the mid to upper 60s, say 66, 67%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it.
So we had two people who made a jump, though not very much. I was sort of hoping that Clemens and Bonds would hit the 60%. They didn't. Do they get in?
They did not. I mean, they barely missed, though. And again, like you said, Jeter's really the only name. We'll talk about the other ones coming up next year. But the next few years, I saw an article out there that the next few years of people coming up are pretty weak. And that they're expecting, now that we've cleared all these people out, because you've had gluts of people elected ever since they only elected one person, or no, when they elected nobody back in 2013. You had 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and 4. It's like the most people who have gone in for years. I mean, just going back the years before 2013, we had 1 in 2012, 2 in 2011, 1 in 2010, 2 in 2009, 1 in 2008, 2 in 2007. You have to go all the way back to 1999 with Nolan, Ryan, George Brett, and Robin Yount to get a class of 3. So they've done a bunch to clear out a whole bunch of people who deserve to get in. But now it's almost like we're going to hit the opposite thing. And there's an article out there saying that they expect the only person to be elected in 2022 to be Omar Vizquel. Which would be an interesting class.
That's making a pretty bold assumption, though, with Vizquel. He's got to make a serious jump. I absolutely agree. You think so?
I know. Yeah. I absolutely agree. But if no one's going to vote for, I mean, Vizquel's at 42.8 on his second year.
Right.
So I mean, he's fifth on the list of people who aren't in already, and and sixth on the list is McGriff. Who's dropped off. So it's very, very. I mean, if anyone's going to get it, and they're not going to vote for steroid guys. I mean, it pretty much seems like Vizquel is the only person in that top part who has a shot.
Now, Larry Walker.
Presuming some of these other guys get in too.
Yeah, Larry Walker made this big jump to almost make you think, hey, maybe he's got a shot. He's 54.6 on his ninth, and the more we sort of learn about the humidors and everything about that, there's some serious momentum for. And have you ever seen his Twitter handle? It's Canadian Moose Lips.
Oh, that's a pretty good Twitter handle. I'll put that one right up there with mine. So.
Yeah, you'll have to explain that one to me. Secondhand burrito.
Yeah, it's an inside joke. I was visiting my wife, who was my girlfriend, and her roommate, and
sounds like a sitcom.
And they were eating Chipotle, and I was like, oh, I haven't had lunch yet. I'll just go get something. And her roommate had not finished what she was eating, and she's like, here, just finish this. I'm like, man, I don't want a secondhand burrito. Nobody wants a secondhand burrito. It just became a running joke. So, secondhand burrito is my Twitter handle from a conversation from.
Love it.
How many years ago is that now? 12.
So we think Walker. You think he can make that jump, Walker, for another 21%?
Walker is, if he's not in, he's going to miss by like 5 votes. There is nobody else other than Jeter for them to vote for. So since there's nobody else for them to vote for, if they're not going to vote for steroid guys, and again, Walker is not thought to be a steroid guy, but he did play in Colorado, which in many ways is looked to be a performance enhancer, which he has no control over.
Right.
But Walker's in his last year is going to get more serious judgment than anyone else. So the greatest thing that happened to him is Mussina getting in, because there's one fewer person for people to vote for. And if you look at that list, if you're not voting for Schilling or Clemens or Bonds, or Ramirez or Sheffield for drug-related or PED-related reasons, Well, now you got Jeter and who, if you're going to vote for somebody else. And the who, I think, becomes Walker and Scal. I think those two are going to make pretty big jumps next year.
And McGriff not being on the ballot doesn't hurt them either.
And McGriff not being on the ballot doesn't hurt them either. Agreed.
Yeah.
But I mean, McGriff needed one more year on this ballot.
Yes.
If McGriff
he really did.
If McGriff had the 15 years, he'd be in.
You think
but now,
McGriff will get in?
Solving the problem of having too many people on the ballot by increasing the maximum you could vote from, up from 10, and then they decide to limit it by eliminating people down to only 10 years on the ballot. But had they given him 15 years, McGriff would be in, particularly with the way the ballot is cleared out. But now I'm not too worried about McGriff. He's going to get in 3 years, whenever that committee of
right. I was going to ask you that because pretty much that's what a lot of people said if Baines gets in, McGriff has to be in.
Yeah, well, Baines is in. There's 416 other players who need to be in, but it's hard to keep McGriff out. I mean, like I said, if the 94th strike doesn't happen, and McGriff just has the rest of his normal season, he needs 21 games to hit 7 home runs. That 7 home runs gets him 500, and he's walked to the Hall of Fame 10 years ago.
And there's a very good chance of that.
So he's gonna get in within the 15 years he originally would have had to get in. He's just going to get through the Veterans Committee. Mm-hmm. There's no way they're going to keep a guy who doesn't have a whiff of steroids about him and 493 home runs out with the way those guys do counting stats.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh.
And is anyone really going to be that angry about McGriff like they were about Baines?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
He has a cool nickname. He has a cool nickname in a fielding video. So.
Yeah. I still say he goes in with that blue hat.
If that would be hilarious. If they somehow give him a blank hat, because he played for a ton of teams too, but dyed just straight blue, I think everybody would be in favor of that.
Oh, for sure. It would be awesome. So who we got next? Manny Ramirez barely moved. No surprise there. He's in Sammy Sosa limbo land.
Yep.
Jeff Kent, 18.1. He's not getting in. He'll stay on the ballot, but I don't even think he's going to jump that much. I really don't.
Yeah, again, next year's going to be the most interesting. You see how many people are actually going to jump based on the fact there aren't that many people to vote for.
Well, with Kent at 18.1, Nolan right behind him at 17.2, he jumps.
Yeah, Nolan has a good shot. Nolan's got 3 fewer years on the ballot than Kent does.
Right. So I think
Kent's going to go into year 6 next year at 18.1, whereas Nolan's going to get it year 3 at 17.2. Mm-hmm. So I think Nolan's going to get a pretty good chance here as well.
And I think Helton, who was at 16.5, he's going to jump up pretty good too.
Particularly if they decide that Walker's time in Coors Field doesn't hurt him. How can you say that Helton's time in Coors Field hurts him?
Yeah, and I would vote for Helton personally. Wagner's in there at 16.7. He'll probably see a small jump, but I don't think Wagner's getting in. Period.
No.
We know that Sheffield's not, but the one I really want to talk a lot about. I really thought this number was going to be a lot higher, and I know he's got the PED admission. Andy Pettit debuts at only 9.9. He only used it once. Yeah. But, I've always said how he handled it that is your blueprint on how to handle getting caught. You get in front of it, you just admit it. Okay, yeah, it's like Bill Clinton, I didn't inhale, blah, blah, blah. But still, you handle it in a classy way and people forgot. Well, they didn't forget, but they forgave.
Right.
Does the 9.9 surprise you?
Because it's how you're not here to talk about the past.
Yeah, exactly. But this surprised me. I didn't think he was going to be like super high, but I didn't think he'd be a single digit.
Yeah, I think he suffered because he had 2 other members of his pitching staff on the same ballot. Because if you're looking at that Yankees ballot, do you vote for Clemens, Mussina, or Pettit? Or do you vote for all 3? Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to vote for 2 of them, and I think Pettit's clearly the third of those guys. So clearing out Mussina, we'll see how much that helps him. The good news is he got to stay on the ballot, because there's one person who did get to stay on the ballot who I think really deserved a much better hearing, or at least a 5% if he could have stayed on. We'll get to him. Mm-hmm.
So Pettit survives. Hopefully he sees a jump. Sosa at 8.5. There's no point. I almost think that if by your fifth year you haven't hit 10%, maybe there should be a rule to just drop you off because you're not going to make that jump. You're just not.
Right.
Andrew Jones hangs on at 7.5%. So we got a few people who got a few votes who didn't make it. So the one and dones. There's only a few, like 4 worth talking about. And you know your buddy Rick Ankiel didn't make it with any votes.
I'm very upset.
Yeah, I know.
Although I will say I'm upset that Placido Polanco ended up with 2 votes, and none of the guys for the Red Sox ended up with any. Like, who would you rather have, Placido Polanco or either Kevin Youkilis or Derek Lowe?
That's a no-brainer. Polanco's number 3 on that list.
Yeah, so it's if you got 1 vote, whatever. But how does Placido Polanco get 2 votes? Like, who looks at that list and like, you know what? Forget. I don't know. Any one of these people, like Juan Pierre, heck, he's not a Hall of Famer either, but he's more deserving of Placido Polanco.
No, I agree.
But yeah, the one who interests me out of these 4 is Berkman.
Yeah, and those 4, it's Michael Young with 2.1, Miguel Tejada at 1.2, Berkman also at 1.2, and Roy Oswalt at 0.9. All 4 very, very good players. You could make a case for some of them just getting maybe a second look, but Berkman was a little low. I thought.
Go ahead.
Well, no, Berkman is someone I thought was low.
Yeah, Berkman is the one who I feel needed another shot. I mean, Tejada didn't win an MVP, but he is also incredibly tainted by steroids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's not really getting a shot there. And Oswalt is another one who's interesting because he had a dominant run there of 5 years. He never won a Cy Young, but he was in the top 5 of Cy Young voting 5 straight years. So he's someone who is also a little bit surprising. He's someone who was probably also hurt by the fact he can only vote for 10 because there's a lot of pitchers on that list.
Right.
But Berkman was a legitimate part of some very, very good Astros teams. And was one of the most feared hitters in the National League for at least half a decade there. And I'm surprised that he ended up. I mean, 1.2% is not indicative. He's one of the. He's up there for me with Kenny Lofton and Lou Whitaker and a few others of guys who were one and done in the ballot. And you're just like, with all the people who've gotten votes, those guys. So I don't know if he's the most egregious. I still think Whitaker is. But Berkman is on that list for me. I'm surprised he didn't get at least 5%.
I am too, and that was someone. If I would have had a ballot, I certainly would have considered at number 10. It would have been hard, but it might have been just again such a hefty ballot because you can make a case for 10 players ahead of him. You really can. 4 of them who got in.
Exactly, I agree.
So if
sorry?
Yeah, and 4 of them who got in. So like if I put Berkman on my ballot, who am I taking off? But clearly. Right. Some people thought enough of that for Polanco.
Oh. Yeah, well, yeah. But he must have. I don't know who voted for him, but whoever that is, I would like an explanation.
So there isn't one. There just isn't one.
Yeah.
So let's go to the 20.
So who do you like of the incoming people other than Jeter?
Oh, for next year?
Yeah.
Like who would I vote for, or who do I think is going to get in?
Well, I mean, so. Here's the list of people I have for next year.
Okay.
So I have Jeter,
mm-hmm.
and then we have Bobby Abreu, Jason Giambi, Cliff Lee, Rafael Furcal, who I always remember because he was the first person born in the 80s to make the major leagues. That happened back when I was in college. I was like, oh my God, someone in the 80s who made the majors. Eric Chavez, Josh Beckett, 2-time World Series hero Josh Beckett, Brian Roberts, Alfonso Soriano, Carlos Pena, Paul Konerko, Sean Figgins, Marco Scudero. Now we're getting to people who are not really going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Penny, Raul Ibanez, Jason Bartlett, Adam Dunn, Lyle Overbay, J.J. Poots, Ryan Ludwig, Jose Valverde, Alex Gonzalez, Jamie Wright, Joe Saunders, Nate McCluth, Keith Bell, and Kyle Farnsworth. Those are the people I have. Not all of them are ever going to make the ballot because there's a certain number of people going to make it. So a few of those people, it would not surprise if Nate McCluth does not end up on the ballot. But those are at least the people who are eligible based on the basic criteria the Hull has.
The bar's pretty low after Ankiel.
Yeah, exactly. I would take Nate McLuth over Rick Ankiel.
I would too.
But with those people, is there anyone who you think is really going to have a chance of getting at least the 5%? Like, is Jason Giambi or Cliff Lee really going to have a shot? Because those are the two. Or Josh Beckett at least has an interesting argument because he was such an important part of both the Marlins and the Red Sox World Series teams. So he has got that postseason pedigree that some of the other guys don't have. But is there anyone on that list you think is worthy?
Yes.
Of at least, or you're going to say 5%. Yeah, who do you have?
Bobby Abreu.
You think Bobby Abreu?
I don't know that he will, but there's something about, again, this is my own personal bias. I just love just the way he can work a pitcher. And especially now that the game has sort of changed where you're chasing starters much quicker. There is a certain value that he had that doesn't get appreciated as much as it probably should, in my opinion. Still, with 30 hits away from 2,500, a very, very good number. I don't know that I'd necessarily vote for him, but I mean, he was also 5 points away from 400 in OBP. I really liked his overall game. One person I think might get a few votes and probably shouldn't because he was just such a likable guy, but so one-dimensional, Konerko. They even have a statue of him. Is he statue worthy?
That is true. It's been a rough couple of decades over on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, but
so
it's not like they like Philadelphia sort of like put up a statue of Spider Rico.
They should consider it though. Yeah. But I mean, I have to say, Abreu is an interesting one because if two people voted for Polanco, you got to figure those same two people are going to vote for Abreu. So now he only needs like eight or 10 more votes in order to stay on the ballot.
Yeah, that's someone. And again, I know there's a lot of personal bias on that, but he's not completely out of line.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually think that both Cliff Lee and Jason Giambi also have a shot at staying on this list. Giambi's got some PED stink attached to him as well, but he was a major part of those Yankees teams that battled the Red Sox at the beginning of the decade. He was one of the most feared hitters in the league, both when he was in Oakland and in New York. So he's at least somebody who's got a little bit of star power. I can't remember. Did he win an MVP? I'm not remembering.
I think he did. Off the top of my head, I think he did.
I think he did too. So that might help him as well. And he really, at least, he's identifiable with one of the signature franchises. So I think that might help him stay on. And Cliff Lee was simply one of the nastiest left-handers in the league, and he was on the same staff with Halladay that won that World Series for the Phillies back in 2008, and was a major part of their ability to do so. So I think both of those guys have legitimate shots of at least sticking on a ballot that is now 5 fewer people than it had the year before, which means there's going to be some votes freed up.
Yeah, there's a much better shot this year than or next year rather, coming up for sure. So let's look at the class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and this is really I think you and I have the same opinion on this. We're bigger fans of just how they're sort of getting in. There's not nearly as much controversy. The class, for those who aren't aware, Champ Bailey, no shock there, like one and in as he should be. Tony Gonzalez, same. Ed Reed, same. They were the top 3 guys. Period. They should be on their first ballot, and they were. Also joining them, Kevin Mawe, which I'm pretty happy about. Who else do we have?
And Ty Law.
And Ty Law, yeah, I want to get to him after, though. We also have, so Gil Brandt got in, and Pat Boland. I'm guessing he won't be in attendance, because
Boland's apparently pretty far into Parkinson's disease at this point.
Is it Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, I think? Does he have Parkinson's, too?
He has a lot of trouble communicating.
Does he have Parkinson's, too? I know he has Alzheimer's.
Or is it Alzheimer's? Maybe I'm wrong. So maybe it is Alzheimer's. Regardless, he has a lot of trouble communicating at this point.
And also, too, his widow now, or
it's likely he will
not widow. Sorry, his wife has it too.
He'll be in attendance.
Yeah,
but it's very unlikely he's going to be speaking.
His wife, who was doing some of the stuff for him, also has now been diagnosed. Also.
Oh, jeez.
So there's a possibility. I think that was announced about a year ago. So there's a possibility that she may not even be able to accept on his behalf.
Yeah, well, that's why I think the two kids were there for the actual announcement.
Right. So the ones who got let's go to Ty Law, because that's what I really want to talk to you about. Ty Law got in, to me, a minor surprise. I think you had pegged that this was going to be all the people getting in was going to help Richard Seymour. It didn't actually. This was a very defensive back heavy class, which I like because they've sort of ignored that crew for a long time. Oh, I forgot to mention Johnny Robinson also getting in the senior category.
Yeah, and can we talk about Johnny Robinson for a second?
Absolutely.
Johnny Robinson is so overdue for being in the Hall of Fame. He led the AFL in interceptions, and then in the combined leagues, he moved to the NFL, and guess what he did? He led the league in interceptions. Right. He was first team all AFL. Very few of those all decade teams. Very few of the AFL guys are in, and it's really good to see somebody like Robinson get in. And one of the things about him is that his inclusion, and one of the things I enjoy about the Pro Football Hall of Fame is that they eventually, if you were worthy of being nominated, you're probably getting in at some point. There have only been, let me just take a quick look here. Think of all the years the Pro Football Hall of Fame's been around. Now, we don't know about any other finalists before 1970 because they just announced who the class was without telling you who else was eligible. But in the history of the NFL nominating, or the Pro Football Hall of Fame nominating thing since 1970, there have only been 40 people who have appeared on a ballot at one time or another, whether a senior candidate or a normal candidate, and have not gotten in, which is a very small number when you think about it. Who are not currently on the ballot. So guys who are currently on the ballot are separate, so that makes 50. But that's not that many people. And Robertson's inclusion closed the classes of 1985, 86, and 82. So everybody who appeared on any of those ballots is now in the Hall of Fame, which is I think appropriate and really, really nice to see.
And I'm happy. Yeah, I'm very happy.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I'm very happy he got in. He's, I think, been one of the top 10 guys on my annual list since I started this thing. And yeah, it's long overdue. Yeah. Long overdue. And it's sort of also interesting to see also, if you're a senior candidate, it's almost a lock now that you're getting in.
Yeah, and it should be. So ever since the Pro Football Hall of Fame, ever since they had the single dumbest class of all time, which was 2005's 4-quarterback class, they've done a very good job. They started getting their act together in 2008. But they kept having guys like Bob Kuechenberg got to the Final Five and they voted him down. Michael Irvin got to the Final Five and they voted him down, and Irvin eventually got in. Kuechenberg didn't and then passed away this year.
Yes.
But they started just being like, there are so many people who deserve to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's such a small percentage of guys who make it that if you make the Final Five, because out of this list of 15, all 15 of them, well, we could debate one of them, whether Baselli had the longevity in order to make it. Although he is on the All-Decade team of the 90s as a starting tackle.
That is very true. But, so we should look at that group of those who didn't get in.
Right. Do you want to go through? Do you want to go through Law first?
Yeah, actually, sorry. Yes, I do. Yeah, I definitely want your take on Ty Law. 100%. Sorry,
I took us off track there. So here's Ty Law.
I'm easily distracted.
So Ty Law and Champ Bailey's stats are almost exactly the same. Like almost exactly the same. Law actually has one more interception than Bailey. Bailey had a much higher peak than Law did. Bailey also has a lot more sacks than Law does because of the way they were used. But Bailey had a very high starting peak, whereas Law, except for the last couple of years of his career, where he was really dragging himself through the last couple of years there in the Jets particularly, had a much more consistent overall history. Law is second team all decade for the 2000s. Bailey was first. But Law is, in many ways, the ball hawking artist that still haunts Peyton Manning's dreams. Manning actually said that if Law makes the Hall of Fame, he should give Law's an introduction because nobody's more responsible for Law being in the Hall of Fame than he is. So he's the first. I mean, the Patriots have had two people from this nice 18-year run who've gotten in before Law. Junior Seau, who was there at the very end, and Randy Moss, who was there for a few years in the middle there, in the 2007 through 10 time period. But Law is neither of those guys won a championship in New England. Mm-hmm. Law is the first one of the dynasty Patriots. Now, part of the reason that the rest of them aren't in is that Vinatieri and Brady are still playing. And Belichick is still coaching. So the three of them aren't eligible. I do think Kraft gets into the Pro Football Hall of Fame next year, or at least no more than 2 years from now, because they're out of owners to induct at this point other than Kraft. Unless you're going to go back to Art Modell and the entire city of Cleveland would go down to Canton and burn it down if that happened. But you're essentially out of owners at this point because Jerry Jones is in, Pat Bowlen is in. Who else is there other than Kraft?
Well, Kraft is definitely next. So he has to be.
Yeah. So Kraft is going to be the next owner in one way or another, whether it's next year or a couple years from now. He will be the next one in. So, but in terms of historical importance of the Patriots dynasty, it's good to see one of them finally get in. Apparently, he had the longest debate of anyone in the room. They met there for hours. The shortest debate was Ed Reed, was apparently like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Essentially, they said, "Here's what Ed Reed did. Does anyone have any questions?" Everyone said no, and they just moved on. Law had a 27 or 28-minute debate as to where he stood compared to everybody else. I'm glad to see he got in. He is, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer. I think there are 3 players on that defense from that time period of the Patriots who should be in the Hall of Fame. Should be Law, Seymour, and McGinnis, but McGinnis is never going to sniff it, it doesn't look like. Mm-hmm. But it's good to see Law get in and show, because those early Patriots teams were, Brady was a quarterback, and Brady gets credit for leading them, but that team was really, really defense-driven more than anything else.
Right.
Plus, when we talked about the rules and everything like that, the Edgar Martinez Award, it's the Ty Law rule. It's after Law completely destroyed Peyton Manning in the 2003 playoffs. He intercepted him 3 times in the AFC Championship game. Bill Polian, who you know my opinion of that man.
Yes, I do.
Who was head of the competition committee and had all the rules changed for the contact rules to basically make it easier for his team to win. Those rule changes became known as the Ty Law rules. And I always think if they have to change the rules for you, it probably means you had some sort of significant impact on the game, which has also led to when the Patriots won the Super Bowl that next year. Brewski's famous. You can change the rules. You do whatever you want. We're still better than you. We're still going to win. Teddy Bruschi is my all-time favorite Patriot, even more than Brady. Who I would love to see him in the Hall of Fame. But like I said with Edelman, Brewski's never going to sniff it either.
Right.
But he is the ultimate. If you could, I mean, Brady's going to be. If you could live at the Patriots Hall of Fame to one guy, it's going to be Brady. But if you have a second, it's going to be Brewski and Brady for everybody in New England. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think Law. I'm glad he got in. I'm surprised he got in just with how many. I mean, Robinson's a defensive back, Bailey's a defensive back, Reed's a defensive back. The last year they got Brian Dawkins in, so they just had this huge logjam. Last year they got rid of Moss and Owens, so they cleared a little bit of the wide receiver logjam. This year they cleared some of the defensive back logjam, which is good because one of the people who I think he deserves it just as much as Bailey and Law and hasn't been on there yet is Rondé Barber. Mm-hmm. Both Rondé Barber and Leroy Butler are guys who have been semifinalists a couple times now and haven't made it onto the final ballot. Rondé Barber is the other second team cornerback on the 2000s team. Leroy Butler is one of the only two first team guys from the 90s teams who isn't in. The other one is Steve Atwater. So the two safeties are the only two starting guys from the NFL's all 90s decade team who aren't in at this point, which is interesting.
Yeah, and Atwater was a finalist this year, didn't make it. Isaac Bruce still on the outside looking in. Not really surprised. He's going to get in eventually. I'm more surprised that Torrey Holt can't become a finalist, but, I guess...
Like I said, it's weird because Holt's the all-decade team, and Bruce isn't. Not the all-decade team is the be-all, end-all, but I feel it means a lot more if you're on the all-decade team than how many Pro Bowl selections you get. You know what I mean?
I do. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, so unfortunately the way it looks, Holt doesn't even see a finalist until Bruce gets in. So the real loser right now is Torrey Holt on that. Don Coryell, a finalist, he really should be in just for innovation purposes. He's still going to wait. Mm-hmm. Tom Flores, I think, was lucky to be a finalist.
Well, I mean, I feel like Tom Flores has 4 rings. He's also the first non-Caucasian coach to win a Super Bowl, and he won 2. And he has 2 as a player as well. I think my problem with both Coryell and Flores, and it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the way people are elected. Now that we have a separate contributor category, I don't understand why coaches are going in with the players' vote and not just as part of the contributors.
Well, yeah, that makes a lot more sense because you're not. Tom Flores did have 2 Super Bowls as a player, but let's be honest, no one's thinking of him as a player. That's not why he's a finalist.
It's part of his resume, but as Bob Buchner said when he got elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame, I really should have been in as a player when he's a career 202 hitter. Like, it's the fact Bob Buchner played is sort of funny or whatever, but like when it comes to Flores, I mean, it's part of his resume. He was someone who played as well as coached. I mean, that's not why he's getting in, but at least it's on there.
Mm-hmm.
So
who else we don't have? Steve Hutchinson, but he'll get in eventually. Yeah, he's just got to wait his turn. Alan Faneca.
It was interesting. I was excited Mawai got in. I'm surprised it was Mawai who got in, though, I'm not surprised Baselli isn't the one who got selected, but over Faneca particularly.
Oh, I agree.
I presume just in my head, Faneca is the first guy. And then it would be Faneca, and then Mawai and Hutchinson are interchangeable to me. I'm just glad one of them got in because there are too many good offensive linemen. They haven't elected one in like 3 years. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that one of them got to the finals and then they voted him in.
And those 3 are coming back as finalists next year, no doubt. Same with Edgerrin James. He'll get back in on the ballot, I think.
Yep.
John Lynch. I honestly thought like there always seems to be a push to put him in. I think he's now the longest tenured finalist at this point. Is this his 6th year, I think?
This was his 6th year.
Okay. So another kick at the can.
And I'm pretty sure he's a starting safety on the all 2000s decade team.
Mm-hmm. And him not getting in, that also hurts Rondé.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I feel like Holt needs Bruce to get in, and Rondé needs Lynch to get in before either of them get through.
So then, in theory, even though it's not the same position, you think Ty Law getting in helps Richard Seymour?
I do, but I mean, Law was further in line as it was. Like Law had been on that ballot longer, so I think that does help. But yeah, I think it's a good sign for Seymour that he's there because next year, well, we'll talk about next year's guys, but there isn't anyone really to challenge Seymour again. Mm-hmm. He's pretty much going to be the only defensive lineman, I think, who comes up, which is going to be a big help to him.
Yeah. So who do we have coming up next?
So there are 3 guys who I think have a legitimate shot at being first ballot Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. The first one's Troy Polamalu.
Yes.
Polamalu and Ed Reed are just basically their own. They're basically battling between the Steelers and Ravens for all those years. It is just not. It's something that's hard for me to imagine that Polamalu was at least on the ballot. I fully expect him to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. They want to put somebody in. I'm sure. So I would say that Polamalu is a pretty good shot of getting in. Next two are the two others who one has a better shot, I think, of getting in than the other. The two guys from the 49ers who retired early, Justin Smith and Patrick Willis.
Mm-hmm.
I think Patrick Willis has a pretty good shot of getting in. He was considered to be the most dominant middle linebacker for a while. What do you think about that?
I think all of them have a really good shot. I think Polamalu is the front runner, and when you mentioned him and Ed Reed, the first thing I thought of is, man, those two should be in like a buddy cop film.
Yes.
I could just sort of like picture that.
Yeah,
Polamalu still has the great hair, doesn't he?
Yeah, Polamalu still got great hair. Are you kidding? You can't cut that.
No, I haven't seen him in a while, so I wasn't positive. Ed Reed, he just like morphed into like a black 70s sitcom dad just so quickly. Like I could just see him just sort of pulling Danny Glover. I'm getting too old for this shit.
But like Mod Squad version of Black 70s sitcom dad.
Yeah, it's like I think that would just be like a great little buddy comedy. Like why not? There are worse combinations that are out there in Hollywood. Book it.
Did you see the NFL 100 commercial during the Super Bowl?
Yes, which is for me the most entertaining thing because the game was a bit of a snooze fest, unless you appreciate good defense.
Yes, it was.
But
and I also appreciate Patriots Super Bowl victories. So
well,
I liked it better than most, probably.
Yeah, well, I was with a bunch of casual fans, and they were getting kind of bored, and I could certainly appreciate like the great defense I was watching. Having said that, you throw in Maroon 5 Stinkfest, but
Also, don't forget a surprise appearance by Andy Warhol eating a cheeseburger. So,
yeah, what the hell was that?
Nothing moves the needle more than old videos of Andy Warhol eating a Whopper. So
I was just picturing a bunch of millennials trying to figure out who the hell that is.
Yeah, and it's like hashtag eat it like Andy. Like, guys, we have a 30-second spot. It's going to cost us $5.5 million. We need a good idea. What do you think? Andy Warhol. That's it. It's moving the needle. 110 million people are going to be very excited about that.
Well, still better than the...
Although I do have to say
I was going to say, like, I think I saw 3 different commercials that involved robots or whatever the hell. I was drinking a lot, so I'm not even sure.
I was just saying, my favorite set of commercials is the TurboTax ones with the baby robot, essentially telling all the TurboTax employees that they're going to be replaced by robots fairly soon. That was my favorite series of commercials by
far. Sometimes they just don't think. I was playing a drinking game too. Just every time it was a commercial, if there was a rapper in it, needless to say, it didn't go well for me and my liver.
It was like drinking to Roxanne.
Drinking to Roxanne? What? What's that?
Oh, you never did that? Every time, if you ever listen to the police song Roxanne ever came on the radio when you're anywhere and you had a alcoholic beverage, one of you has to drink on Roxanne, the other has to drink on Turn on the Red Light. It's a very good way to get wasted very, very fast.
I never did that. I also incorporated although it didn't come up very often, every time they went a shot to Giselle.
Yeah.
That didn't happen nearly as much as I thought it would.
I agree with that one. By the way, we do have one more person who's probably going to have a pretty good discussion about getting the Pro Football Hall of Fame next year, and that's Reggie Wayne.
Yes.
And Wayne is going to make it harder for both Bruce and Holt to get in.
I agree.
But yeah, Reggie Wayne is someone else who's going to have some serious consideration getting in. It wouldn't surprise me if he got in the first time. It wouldn't surprise me if he didn't get in until it would take him multiple times to get in. Like I said, Marvin Harrison, Randy Moss are the first team of the 2000s. Terrell Owens and Torrey Holt are the second team.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not going to surprise me if one of them gets in or one of them doesn't. I think Bruce this just seems like the class Bruce gets himself cleared and Reggie Wayne takes his spot while we're waiting for someone else. I feel like we're going to have Polamalu and then 4 guys who were on the ballot this year getting it. So with Wayne and Willis might get in too, but he only played for like 6-7 years.
It'll be hard.
So it wouldn't surprise me.
It'll be hard.
It wouldn't surprise me. Willis had to wait as well. But I think Palomalu and probably a couple. If it's only one, it's going to be a couple of the offensive linemen. With Isaac Bruce and maybe Seymour. That's what the way it's looking.
Mm-hmm. But overall, both great classes in both football and baseball. So excellent either way. And that's the wife calling, so I got to cut this short. Great way to end.
That sounds good. The one thing I do want to say is, since there are 5 guys coming off and only 3 guys I think coming on, I think both Barber and maybe Clay Matthews or Zach Thomas find their way off the semifinal list.
Zach Thomas would be good.
I think we're going to have a linebacker because we haven't had one in a while, and Rondé Barber find their way onto the ballot for the first time next year. So either Zach Thomas or Clay Matthews. I think Matthews probably deserves a shot because he's been gone for so much longer. But anyway, hang up on me. Go talk to your wife.
Well, yeah. I've got, knowing that she's going to listen to this, I definitely have to sort of do that. I'll leave it with one thought. We've got to do that hockey thing because we've been talking about that, and I hope you studied up on Pierre Turgeon.
Yeah, I'm fully willing to admit that my original opinion on Pierre Turgeon may be wrong.
Wow.
I'm willing to have it. I'm willing to have the discussion as an American who doesn't really care about the Canadian national hockey team. My feelings are probably a little bit different than yours.
Yeah, when it comes to the national hockey, that's sort of life and death for us. But yeah, that's a definite topic. Also, too, we'll be announcing the fictitious music or rock and roll Hall of Fame soon. So I'd love to have you on for that.
Very exciting. I know that I'm hoping that we have bands of higher quality than the Wild Stallions, even though I did vote for them.
The Wild Stallions changed the world, man. They brought peace to the universe.
They did change the world. I'm just not sure if they had an album or a song or anything. So
no, probably not. But I do wear my Wild Stallions 1989 concert tour T-shirt with pride, which I do have one.
Well, I have a Beats 1995 World Tour of the Tofu Tour T-shirt I wear all the time. So
love it. We have to compare awful T-shirts.
Yes, excellent. All right, go talk to your wife. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, sorry, I was just... Oh, there's more flood? Oh, dear God. Okay. Bye. And just a final thought for those wondering if I was in trouble with the wife, I was not. As it turned out, she didn't need me at all at that point yet. It would have been delayed another hour before she needed me to come pick her up from work. That's it, that's all from Not in Hall of Fame, and the buck stops here. Check us out soon. Thanks so much.